All right. Do we got anything? Test, test. All right. Do we got anything? Test, test. Jeez. This is a I hate it. Like, you get these Windows updates. Sometimes the fairly huge updates, they mess up all your settings, and you have to in some of your apps, and you have to go back and set them again. So in this case, I'm guessing a recent update did something to my OBS settings, so I had to go back in and choose the microphone. So hold on a second, folks. All right. Let's open up the Oculus mirror here. Short intro. What is good, everybody? It is the Godfather of VR, the ageless one of the man, Lincoln Clay, and we're finally diving into Assetto Corsa Evo. It has arrived. I checked it out day one once I got out of work, and I was not happy with what I saw. It was a buggy mess. The VR was atrocious. I've watched a lot of streams and videos, and I was kind of in shock from the hypocrisy that I saw in regards to the reception that AC Evo got versus the reception that Le Mans Ultimate got. I guess I'm ready to go ahead and jump into VR. Let's see what we got. Okay, so I think I can go ahead and close this window, and
Hammerser said, "Hola at Lincoln Clay VR and chat. Good morning."
Hammer, how you doing? We are ready to jump into Assetto Corsa Evo, and we are going to run this in the OpenXR or just VR simply. I noticed a lot of things about Assetto Corsa Evo, and I would never be able to remember all of it. So the best thing for me to do is just tell you guys what I saw as we go along. So in front of me is a floating window of the early access roadmap. I will zoom in, and right now we have 5 cars. No, we have 20 cars, 5 circuits, single player practice, single player quick race. Special events doesn't seem to be working yet because it's not online. The game is still offline. I'm guessing they've got some serious server issues. And out of nowhere, okay, I was about to get pissed. So we got a content drop coming here pretty soon. 2 cars, special events in Fuji, but the second early access release is going to give us 5 cars. Circuit of the Americas, custom race weekend, new special events, replay tools and gallery. VR support step 2, which is what I'm looking at, because what we have right now is not good. So the VR is not off to a good start. Then the third, we've got multiplayer, and I have to, boy, multiplayer. So it's going to seem like I'm jumping around all over the place, but the multiplayer, well, based on what I've seen people say about this game, like, this game, in my opinion, launched in rough shape, and it was still getting high praise. So I am of the belief that right now, Le Mans Ultimate has drawn in some ACC people, because basically ACC is done. It's going to die, because it's probably not going to get any more updates, because the devs are all focused on AC Evo. So they probably come over to Le Mans Ultimate in the meantime. But I think once AC Evo gets multiplayer, a lot of those ACC racers are going to go back to they're going to go to AC Evo, and that's got me wondering how much the user base may drop off on Le Mans Ultimate. So I don't know. Then the fourth release is going to be free roaming. Then the fifth release doesn't say anything, or the sixth early access release. But overall, when the game is done, they are planning 100 vehicles, 15 tracks, or at least 15 circuits, because there's probably going to be several variations of certain tracks. Free roaming, single player, multiplayer modes, dynamic weather, game economy, avatar customizations, dealership, showroom, VR is triple screen support, photo mode, yada yada yada. So you guys can probably see like a half a tent that almost looks like the screen wants to screen tear. And you can see all kinds of artifacts going through my headset right now. And I mean, this is not good. It left me infuriated. And this is where this is probably the biggest area where I point the finger at Kunos, because Le Mans Ultimate and Rennsport did not launch with VR support. They were hidden. And in the case of Le Mans Ultimate, there was a certain way you could type in, there was basically, you could access the VR. And then in the case of Rennsport, I had to use the Unreal VR injector, which I thought injected VR into the game, when actually all it was doing was accessing the hidden VR. In any case, Kunos criticized, they didn't mention them directly, but they said when Assetto Corsa Evo launches, the VR will be there day 0. So I assume that they were taking a shot at Le Mans Ultimate and Rennsport, because their VR wasn't ready, and then they give us this steaming pile of shit. I mean, because this just don't look good. I mean, I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but like through this headset, like the top half of the screen has a bronze tint through it that's going straight through the top half. And as I move my head around, you can see artifacting, all kinds of shapes and lines are appearing all over the screen. And then going into the settings. So we'll start with the video. 1080p native is the highest I can go on the resolution, because I've got, because my computer is connected to, one of my older monitors and not the TV anymore. I did set the frame rate
Instinct said, to me this is kinda lame that they moved from Unreal to make it works better, and it has even bigger problems not only with performance but also with shadows rendering and foliage.
Yeah, I 100% agreed. Is dog shit. And like I said, I can't believe that Kunos took a shot at Le Mans Ultimate in Rennsport because their VR wasn't ready. At least Rennsport and Le Mans Ultimate had the decency to not launch the VR in a shitty state. Now, in the case of Rennsport, they did pull some bullshit. When the Nürburgring DLC came out for Rennsport, then they opened the VR out. They opened up the VR to the public in order to get those sales, because there are people like me who are VR and was not going to buy that DLC without the VR support. So they opened up the VR, and I bought the DLC and never used it. And the VR for Rennsport is dog shit. It's still dog shit. They haven't touched it. Then there's Le Mans Ultimate. At least they kept it hidden until it was ready to go. But Le Mans Ultimate, to their credit, Stephen Hood in one of his roadmap videos said VR. He said, we know you guys are using the hidden VR. And he said, that's fine. Keep using it. He said, in fact, we want feedback from you. And we've got a few things. We made a few improvements to the VR that we think you'll like. And when the VR was ready, they went public with it. And the VR is pretty good for Le Mans Ultimate. And they said they still have plans for the VR. They still have big plans. Whereas this is artifacting dog shit. And then as far as the VR goes, there's no separate VR settings. I don't have any way to map out a VR recentering. So if we go to graphics here, actually, let's back out and go to controls. Well, I can still show you guys. So graphics preset is set to custom. Long and short of it is I pretty much got this set at medium. And although right here on the display, although I have it set to 90 frames, it's not hitting 90 frames. The highest I could get it to go was about 67 frames.
People say that they will optimize it, but the reality is that ACC was never optimized, but newer GPUs and CPUs allowed it to work decent after some time. I think it may be similar case here.
I can agree with that as far as ACC goes, because ACC was dog shit. But I gave Kunos a pass because they blamed it on Unreal. When Marco Massaruto was talking about the development of Assetto Corsa Competizione, he was saying that with the original Assetto Corsa, that originally they had their own engine, but I guess the guy Stefano that wrote the code for Assetto Corsa pretty much wrote it by himself, and he requested a more commercial engine to speed things up, so they went with Unreal. On Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione, and Marco Massaruto said that Unreal was a generic engine, and because of it, it lacked features, and it also, the VR optimization was poor. So when he said that, I said, okay, I'll give him a pass. And when he talked about with Assetto Corsa Evo that they were going to be using their own engine, I thought that maybe their past experience with VR, their past experience with Unreal, I thought they were primed to give us the best looking VR out there, because as of right now, Automobilista 2 is still the best looking VR out there. I would definitely put Le Mans Ultimate in the top 5, if not the top 3 or the top 2. So yeah, I thought that Kunos would be in a position where they would end up delivering the best looking VR. That's not to say that it wouldn't happen, but this right here is not off to a good start. It looks like dog shit. And then there's a aliasing around the edges of this car. Not only is there aliasing around the edges of this car, it's noisy. The edges are moving. You know, it's shimmering, it's flickering, it's moving around. So okay, now we can go to controls. Oh my God. Oh, keyboard and mouse. So, let me see, force feedback. That's the pedals.
Aero X said, "Hi Lincoln, some of the artifacts go away if you choose an outside backdrop for the garage."
No, the garage seems okay. It's the car itself.
Instinct said, "This UI also looks kind of poor, LOL."
Mm-hmm. So then all the mapping that I did day one, now the mapping, the binding the controls was horrible day one. What would happen is I would try to bind the control. When I bind the control, everything was fine. But once I found something that I liked better, or I realized that I made a mistake, it did not want to clear the binding. So I like spent like a half an hour trying to clear the fucking bindings. And I think what I ended up having to do was clear a binding. I tried to clear a bunch of bindings at once. So it's like you have to clear one binding, apply, clear another binding, apply. You had to do the shit one at a time. You couldn't do them all at once. So that was irritating. And then looking up here, I got two Fanatec wheelbase DD1s up here. I got this one right here, just highlighted in red, and then this other one next to it. And I'm not seeing any difference between them. And I'm so like, why is there two of them up here? And then with the V3 pedals, I've got the V3 pedals highlighted, and I can't seem to bind them, but fortunately, the game at least recognizes them, so they do work. The other thing that with the bindings is that I can't seem. Basically, the car's an automatic transmission. I can't seem to make it a manual, you know, in terms of the clutch paddles. So I just been driving it on automatic because after today, I really don't plan on revisiting this game until they get their shit together with it. So, also, what I was going to say with what I was saying earlier about the frame rate, I set it to 90 frames per second, but that doesn't matter because the highest I was able to get was like 67 frames per second, and I'm on a 4090 with a 7800 X3D for the CPU. So there's no way it should be running this terrible. This comes down to optimization because every other game runs buttery smooth. Even Assetto Corsa Competizione, for as dog shit as that VR was, it still runs pretty good. So what I ultimately had to do was I did it natively, and the highest I was able to get it to was 67 frames per second, and it was still choppy. So I ended up having to turn on the asynchronous space warp to try to mitigate some of that. And then I also have to show this to you guys with the Oculus mirror on, because the companion app is showing, you know, it's showing double. It's showing like a split screen for the left and right eye. Let's see here. Out of all, like, I haven't driven that many cars because I've been so busy, you know, being pissed off at this game. But the few cars that I did drive, this AMG GT2, didn't feel too bad. So looking at the car right here, the car doesn't look all that bad except for the aliasing on the edges of the car. I mean, in fact, the car looks pretty nice. Take away the aliasing on the edges. Let's see here. I'll try a couple of tracks. I took a look at Imola earlier. It actually felt pretty good. So I will say that, you know, before we jump in, that this AMG2 did feel pretty good, but more than anything, with the Assetto Corsa, like Assetto Corsa Evo and ACC, that I will admit, I think they probably still have the best trail braking. That part I can definitely admit. I don't know. I mean, the VR graphics themselves don't look bad at all.
X said, I think the aliasing is to do with lights and shadows. When racing at night it's also worse.
No.
Hammerser said, if you go into assists and take it off beginner, you can change the transmission to manual.
Okay, I'll just have to come back and do it after I do a couple of laps. Okay, thanks for that. Appreciate it. So, looking at this right here, the potential is there for the graphics to look really good because, you know, looking at it right here, the graphics do look pretty good. It's just the aliasing stands out, the glittery edges, the flickering edges. Now those trees don't look all that good in the distance. Now I understand that I think SimHub already has support for ACC, for AC Evo, but I haven't found AC Evo in there for my base shakers. But I'll go back and take a look at it. All right, let's do a couple of laps. So, you can see by that tachometer, the rev meter. Ooh. So because of the asynchronous space warp that I got turned on, it's not running all that bad, but it's not running buttery smooth either. I gotta admit that the trail braking does feel great on here. I will admit that even though Le Mans Ultimate is my favorite sim, I'm not a big fan of the way the trail braking works on that game. Yeah, the AI can be a little bit brain dead though. Feedback is really strong, and so I got to turn it down. You know, this, it feels kind of coggy, kind of notchy, but I'm okay with that. When people give their thoughts on force feedback and handling, that to me, that's subjective. So yeah, the AI is. Yeah, the AI is brain dead, and I don't know. Looks like I took a lot of damage. I was. Ooh, I wonder if they took a page. I wondered if they took a page out of Le Mans Ultimate's book, because now I'm noticing when you get to a corner and you hit those brakes kind of hard, the wheel shakes just like Le Mans Ultimate does, and you hear a lot of shaking and rattling and cricks and cracks and shit, just like Le Mans Ultimate when you get to a corner and you hit the brakes pretty hard. Yeah, listen to this when I hit the brakes. You're like just, yeah, you hear a lot of stuff going on when you hit the brakes. That hurt. So let's go back to the main menu. I'll try a different track here in a minute. So go into assistant and take it off beginner. Vehicles. Settings. The HUD gameplay. Let's see here. Controls. Okay, so all right, so I'm looking for assisted here. UI no camera. Steering assist weight. Force feedback gain. Clear binding.
Hammerser said, it's not in settings.
Okay, where would I find it then?
Hammerser said, I think it's the page after you select single player.
Oh, there we go. Expert. Let me see here. Ignition on, automatic gearbox pit. Okay, so automatic clutch is. Throttle blip, automatic headlights, wipers, stability control. Yeah, so I guess this automatic gearbox is what I'm looking for. Let's see what happens. Try a different track. Try Imola. So all in all, like, I understand that this is early access, and I wouldn't have been so emotional if it wasn't for two things. One was Kunos taking a shot at other sims, saying that our VR would be ready day zero, and is I can see where the potential is there, where it can be a very good looking VR, but right now this ain't it. You know, maybe dog shit was too strong a word, but I just don't think it's looking all that good. I mean, it's the aliasing just stands out so much. I mean, looking at this car right here, I can see where the potential is there for the VR to look really good. It's just the aliasing around certain parts of this car. But for the most part, it don't look all that good. But it's just it don't look all that bad, but the aliasing does stand out. And then the other problem I had was YouTubers. They criticized Le Mans Ultimate for being in early access. So I don't like the thought of paying for a game that's not complete and, you know, criticizing the DLC and shit like that, you know, that they're putting out paid DLC and the game's not finished yet. But yet they jump into Assetto Corsa Evo and they act like, you know, I said it on Twitter, they act like, you know, Sim Racing Moses parted the red junkyard. It just, they gave this game so much praise, like they acted like Sim Racing Jesus turned a broken crankshaft into bread. It is. So that right there was enough to tell me they didn't so much criticize what was currently wrong with the game at the time. They talked about how that they trust Kunos and they know this is gonna be when it's finished, what, you know, how good of a product it's gonna be when it's finished, and yada yada yada. They didn't say all that for Le Mans Ultimate. Like, Le Mans Ultimate got hate, and so I felt like they were hypocrites. They criticized Le Mans Ultimate for being in early access, and they, you know, they jumped up and down and threw popcorn in the air for Assetto Corsa Evo. I didn't think that was, I didn't think it was fair. So if it weren't for those two situations, my reaction to this would have been like, okay, it's early access, it's gonna take some time, you know, I'll take a look at it, I'll look in on it periodically, yada yada yada. But because of how much unfair criticism that Le Mans Ultimate got, you know, it kind of pushed my buttons a little bit. Where's the burp? Burp, burp, beep. Okay, yep, that helped. Thanks, I can shift the gears. Ooh. Yeah, like the AI is definitely brain dead. And I might have turned the force feed down a little bit too much. Yep. And the AI is brain dead. They will pit maneuver you. They will try to drive right through you. So they definitely got to get the AI together. Turn that force feedback back up. And restart the session. So just so the AI doesn't take me out, I'm gonna let them go first. Because AI is at its most dumbest on the first lap. Okay, my traction control seems to be working in terms of me being able to select where I want it to be. There is a couple of small details that AC Evo is missing that other sims have, and it sounds petty to bring it up, but it's actually very important to me. And that is, like, when you go off track, I don't see any dust or gravel kicking up when you go off track. The other small detail that doesn't seem to be here with this game, and it wasn't there with Assetto Corsa Competizione either, is when people lock up their wheels or the cars spin out, there's no smoke coming from the tires. And that may sound petty and it may sound cosmetic, but in games like Le Mans Ultimate, it is a very critical piece of information, because you go into turn one and you see smoke coming from someone's tires. That tells you that they locked up their wheels, and depending on how bad they lock their wheels up, they have a flat spot, meaning that their car's gonna be slower. Their lap times are gonna be slower. So that could be an easy opportunity for you to get around someone without having to get into a fight, without having to get into a fight and spending 4 or 5 laps trying to overtake them. You might be able to get them pretty easy if you already know that they got a flat spot. So that's not the case with this game. You don't know when somebody locked up their wheels or not on this game, because you don't see any smoke coming from the tires. And then going off the tracks, here come the other cars, which projected look to them when they went by, but at least it wasn't like GT7. So I mean, and then the other thing, let me show you guys here I'm also using the OpenXR toolkit, so I've actually got the resolution pretty high. Let me see if it'll show that window. So going over here, you can override the resolution, and so I did override the resolution. I'm running this at an upscale 3000p, so I definitely have a sharp picture. So yeah, looking at my right over there, there's some slight jaggies on the edge, but it's still a sharp picture in my opinion. But coming back to what I was about to say about the gravel when you go off the track. An example, when I'm playing Le Mans Ultimate, I don't necessarily have to see a car go off the track, because you'll see a cloud of dust when somebody goes off the track. And when I see the cloud of dust, I know somebody up there went off the track. They've got dirt on their tires, and they're going to lose grip until they get that dirt off the tires. So I'm looking for the car that's kind of had this sliding around corners, and I'm like, okay, he's the one that probably went off the track. I can probably attack him. So yeah, that's those are two small details that was not in ACC, and it's not in this game either. I think it should be. I mean, hell, even Gran Turismo, with that being a game that's made for casuals, even that game has those type of details. When you go off the track, you'll see dirt and grass kicking up, and when somebody spins out, you'll see the smoke coming from the tires when they spin out. And that was another thing about ACC. Another small detail that I think was not there, that when you do lock up the wheels, sure, it wears out the tires a little bit faster, but it does not burn a flat spot. Out of the games that I've played, it does, where you can get a flat spot from locking up the wheels, like Le Mans Ultimate, R Factor 2, and F124, of all games. Those are 3 games where you can lock up your wheels and get a flat spot. And to me, like catching a flat spot, you are basically behind the 8 ball, especially if it's a sprint race, because you're kind of in a situation where your lap times are going to be slower, but you might lose a lot more time coming into the pits to get fresh tires, because you get fresh tires, you got to warm them up, that stuff. Whereas if it's an endurance race and you lock up the wheels and you see that you're starting to lose some time, you can make a decision to come in and get tires and possibly make it up. But it's just the point that it adds an element of strategy and unforeseen situations within the game. So I guess all in all, when this game gets multiplayer and it gets the GT3s, all the ACC people are going to come to AC Evo. What I don't know is whether Le Mans Ultimate will see a drop off because of it. I'm hoping there's enough room for both games to exist. And you know, we'll have to see. But wait a minute, there's a car behind me. What do you want? Well, looking at that car, doesn't. The aliasing didn't look, you know, when the car was behind me, the aliasing did not look so bad to the point where it would burn my eyes out. It didn't look bad. So, you know, now that I'm in a race, I'm not seeing the artifacting like I saw at the main menu. But yeah, those like those trees up there, man, you might be able to see the pop-in on these trees. I see pop-ins from the standpoint of the trees are changing colors. So as far as the environment goes, the trees don't look very good, and yeah, I do, you know, see glittery edges. But I guess all in all, it's not looking all that bad. It's got a ways to go, but it doesn't look so bad to the point where I would just vomit.
Time the devs had and the hype they made, I can't believe they released this game in this condition. They dropped the ball.
I would agree. They did drop the ball. The biggest thing about is, like, when they showed everybody the trailers and they showed everybody gameplay, you know, the cinematic gameplay, the cinematic trailers that they showed, I mean, just made the game like look jaw-dropping. It was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then with the gameplay that they showed, the little bit of gameplay that they showed, it looked polished. The game looked like the impression that I got was that the game was probably like 80% complete. They just probably needed to tweak a few things and put an extra coat of paint on the game and give it a little bit more polish, and it'll be ready to go. But it seems to be far from that. Now at this close range right here, this is a good looking picture. At this close range, I'm not really seeing any aliasing. Looking up into these stands right here, looking at the NPCs. But then as soon as I look straight ahead, now the fence down there is shimmering and flickering. The trees are flickering. The grass here looks exactly like ACC. For the most part, it looks like carpet with a few blades of grass sticking up. But when you look further down right there, that doesn't look bad. But I'm never going to criticize any game for that, because, I mean, if they made each one of these blades of grass stick up out of that carpet, this game would never be able to run. think with the NPCs, they put enough people in the stands that move around to add to the immersions, but some of them are cutouts that's just sitting still that don't seem to be moving. But I think they got a perfect balance there, because I think if they made every single one of these NPCs move around, it would probably tax your hardware that much more. So I think what it comes down to is I can get where people were saying that, you know, that they think this is going to be a good game once it's done, once it's polished and stuff. I think aside from the two details that is going to be lacking, I could agree with that. But Kunos was disingenuous in the way they promoted this game. They made us think that this game was just about ready for prime time, and it's not. And then you have Kunos taking a shot at other sims for the VR not being ready. And if you don't have a beefy PC, the VR is probably not going to run very good. I'm on a 4090. I have to use a synchronous space warp. I don't know if you guys can see the FPS counter in front of me. It says 45 frames per second, but what's going on is I have the asynchronous space warp on. So it's running at 90 frames per second, but it's inserting fake frames in between the real ones. So because of that, that's why you get like the slight ghosting when the cars go by. That's why you see that. And I, at this moment, until they get the VR optimized, I'm gonna have to use the synchronous space warp so it doesn't run like total dog shit. Okay, so my ABS is working too in terms of where I mapped it out, so it is working. Yeah, I gotta admit that the trail braking on here is excellent. The sooner I say that, I get tapped. You can hear the cars rattling and shit as they went over the sausage curve when they came by. Oh, those birds that just flew over here was choppy. Yeah, you can hear the... Yeah, it almost sounds like the car is bottoming out as it's going over the sausage curve. Yeah, now as I said before, the audio, as far as in terms of how the car sounds, I actually like the way this car sounds. And I think that's subjective. I don't know why it's getting criticism. I mean, it's either you like it or you don't. They make it sound like the audio isn't good. No, to me, it's not about whether the audio is good or bad. It's a matter of whether you like it or not. It's subjective. It's not a written. It's not a written law. So yeah, going around those two corners right there, the trail braking felt excellent. I can admit that. I definitely love the trail braking. Boom. I came in too hot. Now the audio, the sound effects was definitely there when you went off track and went into the gravel, but the dust cloud isn't there. That's one small detail that ACC didn't have, and like I said, those details are there in other games. So I don't understand why they can't put a simple simple effect in there to add realism to it. But let's go ahead and back out. Jeez, there's a lot of blur replay. Thing in the distance is blurry. It seems to be my car is the only thing that's coming into focus, but everything else around it seems to be blurry. So yeah, it needs work. I guess now that I'm over my initial reaction, it doesn't feel like the dog shit that it did the first time I tried it, but no doubt about it, it still needs work. The VR still needs work. But I guess I'll just check back periodically as they keep making updates. But the other thing I'm still going to be keeping my eye on is let's go back and as we get more cars and tracks, are they going to be charging for it? Even though the game is still in early access. Because if they charge for cars and tracks while this game is still in early access, I'm going to be keeping my eye on the shills, on the ACC shills, and see if they have a problem with paid DLC, even though this game is still in early access. Whereas they criticize Le Mans Ultimate for being in early access and charging for a subscription for DLC, yada yada yada. You know, I think Le Mans Ultimate, I think they were transparent when the game first came out. I guess the game initially did better than they thought it would, and then the DLC, the paid DLC, the first one, did better than they thought it would too. But they admitted that, you know, the game still needs to make enough money to sustain itself. And they said that, you know, the money that they made off the DLC is probably enough to last for 1 or 2 months. So I was understanding of Le Mans Ultimate being in early access because they probably don't have the liquid cash to fully develop the game and then release it. They're gonna have to probably ask for money as they go along, and that you know, that seemed to rub people the wrong way. But that could be the case with this game, where as we get more cars and tracks and DLC over the next, you know, 9-10 months or whatever the case may be, are they going to be charging for that DLC? And if they do charge for the DLC, I'm going to be watching specific YouTubers to see what they have to say about it. Will they be, you know, will they give AC Evo the same criticism they gave Le Mans Ultimate, or will they excuse it? So I guess go ahead and put a bow on it. Based on the roadmap, I will check back with it again here pretty soon, because The next early access release, I guess, is gonna, you know, add more to the VR support. So I hope that that means we'll get, you know, VR recentering and other features that you would commonly see on other sims. So we'll see how that goes. So So that's it. Not total dog shit like I originally said, but still needs a lot of work. Still, the game still's got a long ways to go. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and boogie on out of here. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess we'll revisit this when it gets its next early access release and see what the improvements are. With that, I want to thank you all for watching. We'll see you on the next one, and till then, you all know the line: Wakanda forever, long live the king, and deuces. Have a good one, everybody.
Hammer Sir said, "Have a good day, sir."